10 years after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of same-sex marriage across the United States, it could now be overturned.
Good. This is the wake-up call that the LGBTQIA excuse me, forgot the 2S at the beginning, the 2S LGBTQIA plus, I'm sure I forgot something.
2S LGBTQPIA+.
But this is maybe the wake-up call that everybody needs, since everybody's gotten so comfortable trying to redefine not only what marriage is, but also what a woman is.
Senior Washington correspondent Devin Dwyer is on the story for us. All right, give us the deal, Devin. Who is actually asking the justices to overturn this?
Well, in recent years, Kira, we've been waiting for a case like this as some of the sentiment in the country has started to shift a little bit, softened rather, against same-sex marriage.
Okay, well, I don't know if it's starting to shift or it's starting to soften, but whatever's going on, a lot of people are tired of the LGBTQ madness, which is reflecting poorly on gay people. And had gay people been able to find their balls and stand up to the trans activists, maybe this wouldn't be something we really had to work on. And also, were gay people not so interested in being affirmed by straight people or straight society, this also wouldn't be that big of a problem. And also, were our politicians, the left-wing politicians specifically, that claim to love and care about gay people so much, to have introduced some sort of legislation that would give gay people their own thing that wasn't gay marriage, because the word marriage should not be that important if we're talking about actual rights. If we're talking about your feelings and what makes you feel more accepted and more acceptable to straight society, then I fully understand why you're so worried about marriage. But if we're talking about rights, which is what a lot of us were talking about, then what we would be more concerned with than this idea of marriage or this word marriage would be the rights. So what we would do is say something like, give us all of the same rights that people get with marriage, as far as taxes, as far as being able to see your loved one should they happen to end up in the hospital, every single benefit that marriage covers. Because when it comes down to it, if we're talking about what marriage is under the law, what we're talking about is a contract between two consenting adults. That's what we're talking about. So I don't care if you call it a civil union, but you can't do that. And you want to know why you can't do that? Civil unions for same-sex couples were proposed as a way to offer legal recognition and some rights of marriage without fully embracing the term marriage. However, many argue that civil unions are inherently unequal and stigmatizing. Okay, why do we care about stigma? If we're so proud to be gay, so happy to be gay, what's the stigma involved with a civil union? We'll get to the rights part in a second. And that marriage is a fundamental right for all couples regardless of sexual orientation. So really it is about your feelings, because like I said, what we should be pushing for is something that offers all of the same rights as marriage. Not some of the same rights, all of the same rights as marriage. And then when it comes to the religious right,
you saw the Southern Baptist Convention, the nation's largest Protestant Christian group, just last month. They voted to make overturning Obergefell a top priority. So there's a renewed effort by activists in this space to try to get the attention of the Supreme Court. And a lot of them, Kira, are pointing to comments by Justice Clarence Thomas, the senior conservative, who after the Dobbs decision, the one that overturned abortion rights in this country, he said in his opinion that he thinks it's time to take a look again at marriage rights.
You wouldn't have to worry about them trying to dispute it, because you could be like, this is a contract between two consenting adults. This has nothing to do with your religion. This has nothing to do with your church. This has nothing to do with your beliefs. This is making sure that I have all the same rights that you do as an American citizen. But that's not good enough for a lot of gay people, because a lot of gay people, whether they want to admit it or not, want to be affirmed just like the trans community does. So when gay people hit me up and they're like, you support the trans community and we're something different. No, you're whiny and looking for acceptance just like they are. So don't come at me sideways. Don't try to tell me I'm the problem. I don't love myself enough. Oh, trust me, I love myself enough that I don't need a particular word to make me feel like I'm valid in society. If what I'm looking for are rights, then why do I care about a particular word? Maybe ask yourself that question instead of coming to me and being like, you're a pick-me. You want straight people to accept you. No, you want straight people to accept you. I accept that I'm something different. I accept that I, as a gay man, will always be something different. You want to call it an abnormality? Fine, call it an abnormality. If I'm only 10% or an estimated 10% of the population, that's an abnormality from the other 90%. I fully accept that. Look at me closely. Do you think I'm trying to blend with everybody? Do you think I'm looking for anybody's approval? Maybe. Ask yourself why you are.
It's unclear whether the court will take it up. A lot of the legal experts I've talked to say there's no chance the Supreme Court will want to wade into this. Most legal experts think that the chances are less likely than not.
What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, you guys, I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm a little bit hot today about this gay marriage debate. And mainly because in this particular story that was done on the news, they say several times that this probably isn't even going to be heard, that this really isn't an issue. But all people heard was that gay marriage might possibly be overturned.
There's been a lot of talk about whether the justices would get a chance to reconsider the case. And as you said there, they are getting that opportunity next month. We've learned that Kim Davis, she's that Kentucky clerk from back in 2015 that was at the center of international controversy when she refused to issue marriage licenses to a gay couple in Kentucky in defiance of the Supreme Court. That's what she's appealing to the Supreme Court, but it's the first time, Kira, that anyone has technically asked the justices explicitly to overturn Obergefell v. Hodges, which was that landmark ruling. And she does just that. Her counsel in this petition, which was filed last week, says that decision was egregiously wrong. And if that sounds familiar, that's the same type of argument that was made by opponents of abortion when they sought to overturn Roe versus Wade just a few years ago. So a lot of eyes on this petition. It's unclear whether the court will take it up, but certainly a lot on the line.
Well, is there any indication that justices will consider hearing arguments?
A lot of the legal experts I've talked to say there's no chance the Supreme Court will want to wade into this. But, you know, the climate that we're in right now, anything can happen. Certainly, we are in the midst of a campaign against same-sex marriages across the country. At least 9 states so far have either passed legislation seeking to end those rights or specifically asked the Supreme Court, send resolutions to the Supreme Court asking them to revisit. So anything can happen. It's on the table, but most legal experts think that the chances are less likely than not, Kira.
Got it.
And everybody started losing it. But what a lot of people forget is that the gay community, even the gay community, not just the LGBTQ community, the gay community really has done its best to step on everybody else's definitions and traditions, and then tries to act like, well, why would you ever come for us? We're completely passive in this situation. We just want our rights. Really? When you're trying to force the man to make the cakes in Colorado, which, if you're familiar with Denver, which is where the gay cake situation happened, was the Denver area. If you're familiar with Denver, that is one of the most woke, LGBT-friendly places you will ever want to be. Denver is so bad with the wokeness. I think they're starting to maybe come around a little now, that when Trinidad Aragua was terrorizing Aurora, which is a suburb of Denver, nobody was allowed to mention that that was actually happening. So that's how woke that the Denver area is. But these people said, we want this person to make our cake. I don't care about his religious beliefs. He's got to make our cake because we need him to make our cake. He's the only one that can make our cake. So we're going to force him. And that didn't work out too well. And that didn't look really good on us as a community. Then not too long ago, I did a story about a couple in Washington that once the woman that owned a particular restaurant said that she didn't want to cater their wedding, because in order to cater a wedding, you have to be a part of the wedding. You have to be a part of the atmosphere. You're going to be in it, she said that she didn't want to do that. This lesbian couple made it a huge thing and wanted to end her business, started picketing and everything else, when in Washington, you could just say, I'm going to go to another spot. But instead, LGBT, in true LGBT form, wants to push everything on everybody and make it so everybody will affirm them, make them feel a particular way. And I don't need anybody to make me feel anything. If I were to get married, I would go to a place that actually wanted to serve me, didn't have a problem with being at my wedding, which would be a gay wedding, obviously, but no plans of getting married right now. Why? Because I don't want to change and I don't want to compromise. I just want to be me. And so that's the reason that I'm not married. And that's the reason that I have no interest in being married, because I know that marriage takes compromise. And at this point in my life, I don't really know that I want to compromise with anybody. When it comes to the personal, when it comes to regular life stuff, I'm fine to compromise. And that's where I think a lot of the gay community really falls short. A lot of the LGBT community really falls short. Like, I had people getting mad at me on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, because I tweeted this yesterday. This gay marriage situation is a wake-up call for LGBT to tighten up ranks. The T needs to stand for transsexual and only pertain to people legitimately suffering from gender dysphoria. The Q needs to be completely gone. The fake trans need to be completely ostracized. We are not queer. And there were people that were still like, transsexual shouldn't be a part of it. Transsexual is not LGBT. But it's like, okay, so are you saying that you think that a trans woman is a woman and a trans man is a man? Because if you're not saying that, which I'm not saying that, I'm saying a trans woman is a trans woman and a trans man is a trans man. So if I'm saying that, and you're saying that too because you agree and you're a sane person, then you know that a straight trans woman is a gay man. A straight trans man is a lesbian. So tell me how that's not LGB. Oh, but we shouldn't include the T because that's identity. No, that's actually a mental disorder. And if that's what we're going back to, which is what I think most of us agree that it should be, well, the sane ones, I should say, agree that it should be, then let's do that. I saw Gays Against Groomers talking about it on their page, where they were like, the LGBT cult took over. No, you've got a huge platform, and I noticed you never go after HRC and GLAAD, which are the head of the beast, and you've got a big enough platform that you can, but why don't you ever choose to do that? Maybe because in some way you still want to be in good favor with groups like that, because they're making a lot of money just like you want to one day be making that same kind of money. And you probably think there might be some chance for some sort of synergy, or you would go after them hardcore instead of going after everyday trans people or the local drag show that somebody sent you a video of. How about we do that, Gays Against Groomers, instead of pretending to be so militant, but when it comes to other big dogs, other groups that are your size or bigger, suddenly you tuck your tail between your legs and you're not as loud as you would be. When you're telling people that they shouldn't pay attention to me or my page, which I don't care because I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say anyway. But when Gays Against Groomers is telling people they're keeping an eye on me, which is something that was literally told to me by somebody that works with Gays for Groomers, that they're keeping an eye on me. You're right. I'm the one you need to keep an eye on. I'm giving bad ideas through good advice. That's what I'm doing over here. I'm telling trans people to fully accept what you are and that you are trans. And that does make you different from a genetic female, from an actual woman. I'm telling trans men the same thing. I'm telling these people that you wouldn't be nearly as depressed if you didn't have this impossible goal in your mind of thinking that you could actually change your sex, which is something that all of a sudden everybody's adopted, that they can, in the trans community, the trans activist community, that they can change their sex. Not possible. You're never going to go from male to female. That was just an expression, a male to female transsexual, a female to male transsexual. That was just an expression to say you're changing the way you present from appearing to be male to appearing to be female. But you will never actually be that. And that's not me being mean at all. I have been very clear about the fact that I think transsexual should continue to be a part of the community, not only because at their base they are what they are, which is LGB, which a lot of people had a problem with the B forever. Like bisexual wasn't considered to be a part of the community because a lot of people thought you had to be more on the purist side. You're either all the way gay or all the way lesbian, and any of the in-between shouldn't be there. That's the way it was when I was coming up, and I'm not saying that it should still be that way. I'm just saying that if we're going to be purist about it, you can't be like, we're the LGB community. That's just because you like certain bisexuals. Bisexuals can be very hot. That's the only reason you're making that allowance, because they could still be an option for you. But when it comes to most of us gays, we're not into trans because we like people that at least in some way still hold on to what it is they are as far as genetically, as far as biologically. They're not trying to erase that. And with trans people, in a lot of cases, they are trying to erase that. When it comes to trans children, most sane and logical gays will tell you that that's not an actual thing, and we shouldn't be chemically or surgically altering children. We should let them grow the way that they should grow. But a couple years ago, people would get mad at me for saying that. People in the community, the same people that are mad at me now for saying that transsexuals, full-grown transsexuals that fully acknowledge their biology, because most transsexuals, this is my problem and people don't get it. People always ask me, well, what's the difference between a real trans person, since you love to use the term true trans? I never use the term true trans. I say real transsexuals, because a real transsexual is a person that's dealing with gender dysphoria. And whether or not they actually identify once they're fully through their transition or as far into their transition as they're going to go, because a lot of people don't pay attention to me on that either. But one of the reasons that I'm so against young trans people making any changes to themselves, some people grow out of it, and some people realize that because of where we are in medicine, that they are only able to go so far before they mess their bodies up physically. And then some people realize that they'll be perfectly happy without getting a full change. Some people will just get the top surgery. Some people will get the top surgery and the bottom surgery. A lot of people end up realizing that when it comes to what can be done with modern medicine, and this is something you can refer to Buck Angel's channel for all day long. I love Buck Angel. He's always willing to give you the real. And that's one of the reasons that I think that real transsexuals should definitely stay a part of our community, especially the elders like Buck Angel. And Blair White, while she's not what you could call old enough to be an elder, she definitely is wise, and she definitely does let people know the real deal about all these things. But if you talk to actual transsexuals, they will tell you bottom surgery for male or female has not been figured out. Recreating those parts has not been figured out. And in a lot of cases, you'll end up messing up not just the cosmetic, but your bodily functions as well. And we all know how important bodily functions are. So if you got to go number one or number two, and you mess up your downstairs, you're going to have a lot of problems. There's a lot of corrective surgeries happening right now, and people are ending up having to settle for good enough and all sorts of medical complications that I'm sure a lot of them would tell you, and plenty of them have, on Buck Angel's channel. Once again, I cannot plug it enough, because that's where you can get one-on-one interviews. Buck does a lot of interviews with a lot of trans people that have either decided to detransition, or they're fine with the fact that they chose to transition, but they just realized that some of these surgeries didn't turn out to be the best idea. And sometimes Buck just reviews certain things, but very important resource when it comes to all this. But again, not everybody's happy with what they've chosen to do. And some people would realize sometimes you don't even need hormones, and you turn out, like I said, not to be trans at all. What you turn out to be is a person that likes to look like a woman or likes to look like a man, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I feel like if we were the community we pretend to be when it comes to LGBT, because I do think that Q should be completely gone. Queer a lot of times means nothing. Queer is an ideology. So while a lot of people would say you don't choose to be straight or you don't choose to be gay, you do choose to be queer. And when it comes to women's spaces, which is another thing that the community has been fully on board with people invading, which I've always been very honest about that. When I was coming up, because trans wasn't any kind of badge of honor, it wasn't about invading spaces. It was about discreetly going into the bathroom that you most identified with as far as the way you look and not making anybody uncomfortable and not being any kind of creep. But now that things have changed the way that they are, and listen closely, because I know some people get like, so you think these men should go in women's bathrooms? Shut up. And sorry I'm so angry, but I'm tired of the idiots. I am tired of the level of dumb on both sides that I have to deal with in order to help out or reach the ones that have common sense. Male and female, gay and straight, trans, biological, whatever you are. And you see, I still have a sense of humor, so I'm not completely mad. But at the same time, I gotta be honest, I'm so sick of stupid people on both sides. Because if you've heard what I've said most recently, what I've said is that I think true allies to trans women, especially the harder, non-passing ones, the ones that would make a problem, because I'm going to tell you guys, I've said it before and people don't understand me. I care about your safety. I do not care one fuck about your comfort. I just don't feel comfortable if somebody has previously lived as a male, and even if they've had their parts cut off and they fully wouldn't be able to do anything, I just don't feel. Who cares if you feel comfortable? Stay home, Karen. Outside life isn't built for you. Ever heard of agoraphobia? Look into it. Identify as it. Live it. Be it. Anybody can be agoraphobic. I'm looking into it myself right now, because I'm so sick of people. But when it comes to people saying non-passable trans women, I get that. And there's always going to be that phase. Even with the girls that blossom into the most beautiful, there's usually a weird point where you're like, okay, this isn't. This isn't. Whatever it is, it needs to go back on the grill. That's all I'm going to say, sir, ma'am. But if allies and gay men in the community were to be like, look, we will not let other men bully you when you come into the men's bathroom, because biologically that's what you are. So rather than making the women uncomfortable, and I know some people are going to have a problem with me using any of the phrasing that I'm using right now, but what a lot of people aren't understanding is we live in a modern world. And so both sides do need to, in some way, compromise, or you guys can fight it out in whatever bathroom you feel best doing it in. Because a person like me, I give a lot of thought to this because I've had trans friends my entire adult life, but we never had any problems like this, and I never had to lie to any of them. And that's what people don't understand too, when they're like, you're feeding their illness. I don't feed anything. Okay, every once in a while we go out to dinner together and I'll literally feed. I guess their illness is a part of them, so... At that point, I'm literally feeding their illness, because we will go out to dinner. But all jokes aside, I'm not feeding anybody's illness. I'm just saying certain people deal with certain things. And if we're going to live in the modern society that we live in, then that's something we have to consider. So when it comes to males who eventually want to present as female, look like women is a better way for me to put it, they should come into the men's bathroom, and as a society, we should agree that people should not give them a hard time when they're in the men's bathroom. But nobody wants to compromise on that, because you say that, and then some women, TERFs, that are feeling hardcore about it, and I'm not a person that thinks that anybody that believes in biological reality is a TERF. I'm talking about people that actually identify as TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminist. If you're not familiar, they're the feminist or the women that think that a biological male has no place in any women's spaces, which it's not my fight. But whatever you decide, you decide. Whatever society works out, they work out on that end. But when it comes to the actual TERFs, some of them will be like, trans women aren't a thing and they should get out of women's clothing. Okay, well, I'm not going to police anybody's fashion choices. I'm just not. If a person wants to dress in female clothing, that's their choice. A lot of regular men like myself well, I don't know that I'm regular, but you know what I'm saying. Men that identify as men, cisgender. I never use that term, but I guess I just go with being obnoxious right now because that's where I'm at. But regular men, a lot of times now, wear nail polish. They'll, in some cases, wear a little bit of makeup. I've been known to wear makeup every once in a while. I don't feel like it lately, and it's hot everywhere I'm at because it's summer, so I'm definitely not getting dusted for any of these fools. But sometimes I've been known to wear some makeup. I usually try to make it a little natural, but either way, I'm wearing makeup. That is technically something that's traditionally been for women. So when TERFs come at me and they're like, they shouldn't dress like, okay, well then you make that your job. I'm not gonna make that my job. What I'm saying is, if the LGBT community had been more considerate in the way that they've been doing things, then right now, when people were talking about gay marriage being on the chopping block, more straight people would step in and be like, this should not be happening. But the other thing that I think that is happening, because like I played, there really is a lot of reason to believe this really isn't going to be overturned. And there are safeguards. So for the people that are worried about their marriages because of Joe Biden's Respect for Marriage Act, the people that are already married, your marriage will continue to be recognized. That's not at all in jeopardy. Nobody's talking about that. What they're talking about is moving forward and then making it be a states' rights situation, which some people are cool with, some people are not. But my point is, if it's a state rights situation, then you can go to another state, get married, and then everywhere your marriage is going to be recognized anyway. So it's not going to be very effective, even if they did decide to overturn it. But let's go ahead and play into your fantasy of feeling like a minority and feeling like people are discriminating against you and the entire world is falling apart because you're a true Chicken Little. Let's go ahead and do that. If LGBT had put in safeguards earlier and had been as vocal and obnoxious as you are now, like maybe joined me back when I first started talking about this, maybe by now straight people would be like, well, why would we mess with gay marriage? Obviously, they're just trying to live their lives. Had we not forced people to offer us services and goods that were for our weddings, or especially to be at our weddings, then maybe people would be a little more protective of us. But since people have seen the way that we will gladly step on their rights, the way that we will gladly step on their wants, needs, and traditions because we're gay and we want to feel like we're the same as everybody else. A lot of people aren't stepping up for us right now. A lot of people are like, let that play out in the courts, however it plays out. Plus, the LGBT is so panicky right now that people are tired of it. People are tired of listening to LGBT go crazy about something new every week. You can't stay at that pitch all the time and then be like, why is everybody else not at that pitch with me? Well, because you were at that pitch last week, and you were at that pitch the week before, and the week before that, and the week before that. And it was all about a lot of shit nobody cares about, and you can't get that through your thick head. And then people like me will try to help you out because I do believe that gays should have the same rights as every other American. I, even if I don't choose to exercise it, should have the same rights as every other American. I 100% believe that with every fiber of my being. But does it have to be called the same thing? And I know the history of marriage, and I know some people are going to chime in with that and be like, well, originally it was about consolidating wealth and blah, blah. I get it. But we are where we're at now. And a lot of people do equate marriage with religion, with male and female, biological male and female. A lot of people just associate it with that. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter, Mary. Nobody cares what you like and what you don't like right now. That's why you're losing all your rights. In danger of losing all your rights. Because really, no rights have been lost. Some privileges have been pulled back, but no real rights have been lost. So when people are like, we're losing rights, tell me which rights we're losing. What rights have we lost as LGBT? Show me where in the Constitution it says that underage minors should be able to alter their bodies. I guarantee you it's not there. So tell me what right has been infringed upon. Tell me where in the Constitution it says if you decide to use different pronouns, no matter how bullshit they are, it is your American right to have everybody around you use those pronouns. Show me in the Constitution where exactly that's at, and we'll get you a good lawyer. ACLU seems to love taking on cases that really have no merit. Technically, you can go to them now with that kind of stuff. But if we're being 100% honest, if we're keeping it real, if we're keeping it a bill, keeping it a stack, then we would know that we actually haven't lost any rights. And that right now, this is Kim Davis. So when people come at me, because Kim Davis, if you don't remember, she's the Kentucky county clerk that wasn't issuing marriage licenses for LGBT people. She ended up getting a bunch of punishments and penalties as far as money. She spent, I think, 6 days in jail.
She spent 6 days in jail. She lost a defamation suit. She had to pay $100,000 in damages, $260,000 in legal fees.
She's a loon. She's been married several times herself. I think 3 was what they said. She's a loon. It is what it is. Courts don't really want to hear from her anyway. She doesn't seem to be a darling of the court system, but she has a legal right to request this, which is what she's doing. And this is the same process that they use to overturn Roe versus Wade. That's what it was. And so that's why gays are panicked. And I would say that you have nothing to be panicked about right now. But I do think that this is a wake-up call for LGBT people to, like I said, tighten up ranks and really think about the way we're treating others, and maybe go back to the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done to yourself. Stop trying to force people into accepting your ideology or what you think they should be doing. And if it's really about rights, pressure some of the people in Congress that claim to really love and stand for LGBT to introduce legislation and give us our own thing instead of relying on a Supreme Court decision from 2015. That way, once it's codified into law, it's a full law. There's nothing to worry about, and we get the rights we need. And who cares about the particular term marriage? Because I hear it all the time. Well, my grandmother was married and my parents were married, so why can't I be married? Well, because you're gay. So get yourself a civil union, get the same rights. And let's not even get into the fact that so many gay men especially are in open relationships. That's not a traditional marriage. And I know some of you are going to be like, well, there's straight people that swing too and whatever. Don't worry about them. That's what I'm telling you. Stop concerning yourself with the way straight people move. Because if straight people really knew the way we as gay people moved, they judge us a lot more. And don't make me air us out, because I definitely will, gay people. I am not afraid of you at all. There is nothing you can do to me for telling the truth. And that's all I would be doing, is telling the truth. I wouldn't even have to say it in an inflammatory way. I could just tell the truth in the most milquetoast way, and the hair on the back of straight people's necks would stand up with some of the stuff we do. Let's talk about how many loads you take in a week in your dirty face. All right, I think I've made my point. Let me see if I have anything else in my notes, and what I wanted to get at, what I think this is, honestly, is I think it is a test run to eventually, in some way, alter what's going on with gay marriage. I think that is coming down the pike. I don't think it's coming from Donald Trump. That's why I brought up that the Kim Davis situation was in 2015. People were like, thanks for Donald Trump. And it's like, Kim Davis was in 2015. Donald Trump didn't get elected till 2016. So technically that was during Obama's time. And the reason that she's being heard isn't because of this. Like I said, they don't even technically want to hear her, and they may not hear her. But she can legally do this. So she's exhausting her due process. That's what that is. Do I think it's full of shit? Yeah, 100%. At the same time, do I understand why it's happening? Yeah. But yeah, what I was trying to get at, or what I'm trying to say in all this, is maybe actually use your brains and get all your soft feelings out of the way and start thinking about what's actually important to you. Because if the word marriage is so important to you, that's not a concern for me. That's a lot where it goes to, like I said, when it comes to the TERFs and talking about their comfort versus their safety. Your safety, I'm down for. Your comfort, I don't care about. Same thing with gay marriage. It's like, if it just makes you feel better to call it marriage, I don't care about that. I don't care about your feelings even a little bit. I just don't. But if you're talking about your legal rights, that's something I'm down for. That's a conversation I'm willing to entertain. That's something I'm actually willing to, at least to a degree, use my platform for, to shout it out, to help out with that. If there were something introduced where, say, we were able to vote on it, that's something I would definitely be like, hey, you guys, help these queens out. Let them be able to get civil unions, because there are very important things. We found that out in the AIDS crisis. That's really when marriage became the thing. That's when there was a need for it. Because what was happening, if you guys weren't familiar, was that one partner would end up passing away from AIDS, because there was a point where AIDS was an actual issue in this country. I know, well, I have a fair amount of Gen X that remember AIDS, but a fair amount of younger people that might watch my channel may not be familiar. But there was a point where AIDS was very scary and people were legitimately passing away because of AIDS. And what would happen, especially in certain states, like Oklahoma was one I know was happening in, Kentucky, a lot of the southern Midwest type, especially was where it was happening, where they had laws where next of kin was who a person's stuff goes to. There was a whole documentary made about it called Till Death Do Us Part. Really good documentary. It's several, 2006, 2005, something like that, where they actually interviewed or had as subjects some families that were dealing with this, or gay couples that were dealing with this. And there was one in particular that they had lived on a farm together for over 20 years. The farm was in the name of the partner that ended up passing away. Keep in mind, they had lived on this farm together for over 20 years. They had both worked on the upkeep. They had both paid into this particular farm. But because it was in the name of the partner that had passed away, some distant cousins that had never, or not since they were young, dealt with the partner that passed away were able to swoop in because they were next of kin, and that's the way their law worked. And so the other partner, the living partner, had to move out of their home for 20 years that their partner had intended for them to get, but because they weren't able to be married or they weren't allowed any type of civil union, they were basically homeless or had to figure out where they were going to live. The last moments when it came to AIDS, partners weren't able to go in because you had to be either a spouse or immediate family in order to be allowed into the hospital, which is the way that it works now. I don't understand it. I think it's stupid. I think you should be allowed to see anybody you want in your last moments. I don't think they should have to be family. I think you should be able to just allow them, but that's the way it works. So that's a part of why gay marriage was so important too. And so it wasn't about the word marriage. Nobody was worried about the word marriage back then. People needed the rights for very understandable and logical reasons. Where now people are like, love wins. It's about love. A lot of people are married that aren't in love. Why should a civil union be any different? And why do you need that word so badly? So maybe you guys think about that instead of bugging a person like me online, and understand that as long as there are actual transsexuals in the world, like Buck Angel, like Blair White, and I don't care how they feel about it either. Like if they were to get on the phone with me, which I know neither of them would, because they're secure in themselves. That isn't me being like, they wouldn't tell me anything. No, I'm saying because they're secure in themselves, I know that Buck Angel and Blair White would never get on the phone with me and be like, you called me a gay man or you called me a lesbian. That's not even really the way that I see it. I can respect them as what they are because I only need to know them as far as what the visual is. So for me, Buck Angel, for all intents and purposes, is a man. For me, Blair White, for all intents and purposes, is a woman. Because that's as far as I'm going to know them, is what their clothes on. But if we were just talking logically like we are now, and if I were to say it in front of them, I wouldn't think twice about it. I wouldn't be like, I can't say that because they may get hurt. No, they know exactly what they are. And that's what most transsexuals are. And that's what people don't understand, is that when these people come at me and they're like, they're all fetishists, you clearly have never met any actual transsexual people. So I'm not going to pretend like we're both equals or that we're having an equally weighted conversation. You are a townie. I have been all over the world. So I'm not going to lower myself and pretend that I'm the same as you. And if there's other people that maybe aren't as well traveled as I am or haven't met as many people as I have, I'm not saying that by nature that you're a townie. But when you come out real hard against groups of people and individuals that you've never even met, or never even met one of, but just, I read a book, or online it said this, or Sal Grover told me this, or I was watching Kelly J. Keene the other day and she said, I don't care what any of those people say. None of those people know what they're talking about. I listen to them, and I listen to them well, and I listen to them with an open mind, or at least I did at first. And I was just like, yeah, you're right on certain things, but then there's a point where you just go off in your own fantasy land and you're making shit up, you're filling in gaps because you never bothered to actually meet any actual people that suffer from that mental disorder or mental health condition or however you want to refer to it. Again, ain't nobody gonna tell me nothing. Anybody with half a brain that's trans knows that I'm also being on their side right now. I'm just always gonna talk the way that I talk. And when it comes down to it, as much as I act snotty, I'm an idiot from Arizona. So if I'm an idiot from Arizona and I can wrap my head around all these big ideas, then how is it all these other people from all these other parts of the country or other parts of the world even can't and then want to come to me and be like, this is the way you should think and this is the way you should talk. You should leave your town and get out more. And then talk to me as my equal about whatever the hell you want to talk to me about. Anyway, that's where I'm at on it. And like I said, if you want your gay marriage, change it to a civil union, make sure it gets codified into law, and let's end this conversation. So every once in a while, you don't have to panic and be like, they hate us. They don't hate you. You just overstepped your boundaries. And you're going to learn that the hard way. Like I said, at some point, I think they are going to make some changes to the way that it works out. And what they're doing is letting you spin your wheels right now so that the next time, which might be the time that they actually do it, they can be like, nobody's going to pay attention to them. They go crazy about everything. And they're right. Nobody's going to pay attention because you're a boy who cried wolf, a girl who cried wolf, or a they and a them who cried wolf, and everybody's over your whining, bitching ways. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.